as I said, my name is Sandrine. I'm a nutritional therapist and I help women feel amazing from the inside out. And I focus mainly on kind of two areas as my area of speciality. It's hormones and digestion. And today I'm going to talk about hormones specifically and how our hormone interacts, in our body, what happens to our hormone as we go through our various life stages, so that we are aware of the changes and it doesn't feel so overwhelming. So yeah, a little bit about me. So I'm based in Surrey, but I do all my consultations online, and I help women that experience digestive issues like bloating, IBS, reflux, all these long-lasting conditions that maybe you can't seem to get rid of, when actually you can. I promise you, you can. And then hormonal issues, so it could be pre-period pains, it could be managing condition like PCOS, endometriosis, and much more, skin issues and that sort of thing. So that's how I help ladies, and I do that through one-to-one consultations. I do group programs, and I also do family nutrition session, which I really enjoy doing. So let's talk about hormones, all right? So what happens to our hormones? Well, as we get older, our hormones change and drop, unfortunately. But the good news is that there is a lot you can do with nutrition, with food and a few supplements to help you, address that imbalance, all right? And we have 50 hormones in our body and they all interact with each other. Of course, some hormones have priority in the body. Number one is melatonin, which is your sleep hormone. So sleeping, nothing replaces sleep. So that's super important. And number two is cortisol, which is your stress hormones. And I like to use the analogy of an ambulance in our body. The stress hormones are like an ambulance. Basically, when there is an emergency, all the other systems shut down. And that includes our sex hormones. And our sex hormones basically cause all the various issues that we're experiencing, around our cycle. And I'll talk a little bit more about that, because I think that information is really not shared that much. And we really get in tune as women with our cycles when we're trying to get pregnant. That was my case anyway. So a typical 28-day cycle, the first week will be your bleeding time, your periods. Then the second week, a particular hormone called estrogen starts to climb. And some women will experience PMS symptoms, if you like, around that time when estrogen is climbing. And then day 14 of a typical 28-day cycle is when your body ovulates. So that's the release of an egg from your follicles. And after that time, estrogen drops and another hormone starts to climb. And this one is called progesterone. And it's a really calming hormone. So anyone who feels quite anxious, just before their periods, may have an imbalance of estrogen and progesterone. Maybe their progesterone is too low because their estrogen is too high. And I will touch in a second why we may have high estrogen. So some women may experience pre-period symptoms at the end of that cycle, just before the bleeding week. Okay, so it's really important to understand how this works, because it can explain perhaps the symptoms you're experiencing at the minute. So estrogen is a hormone that fluctuate throughout our lives. Obviously, we're born with it, and every month it rises and it drops, rises and drops. And as we reach 35, 40-ish, estrogen may climb a bit more and then starts to drop bit by bit, and that can cause symptoms. The reason why that is because estrogen has a role in so many areas of our body. It has a role in our brain, in our heart, it protects us from cholesterol, in our liver. Again, it's linked to cholesterol production. It helps us keep strong bones, very important. It helps us look young and healthy, so anti-aging effects. And then helps us our brain. So any kind of brain fog could be a sign that estrogen is the levels are changing. And then in our sex organs. Okay. So what are typical PMS symptoms? So you may be familiar with some of them, but there's a long list. I'm just going to name a few just to give you an idea, because you may not actually know what's going on in your body. So one common symptoms of PMS, so that's when estrogen is high, when the body is struggling to metabolize estrogen, to work with it and get rid of the excess. That's when we experience some of our PMS symptoms. So breast tenderness is one of them. Hormonal headaches is a very common one. Heavy periods, weight gain or bloating, particularly before your periods. Fibroids, endometriosis flare up, and ovarian cysts as well. So let's touch a little bit about perimenopause. Now, you might not be ready to hear about this. And, we tend to think about menopause in the 50s, in our 50s, right? But perimenopause can actually happen 10 to 12 years before menopause. So actually, this is the time when you want to take action, the time where you can do something about your symptoms. So, you can go through this period smoothly, all right? Wouldn't that be amazing? And it is possible, I promise you, it is possible. So I've mentioned that estrogen might climb a little bit as you reach perimenopause, so that produces PMS symptoms that you may not have had before, or you may have had really difficult periods in your teens, then you've had children, and then you're getting PMS again, and maybe, quite badly. So that's because estrogen is climbing before it starts to drop, okay? So perimenopause, what kind of symptoms do you get when estrogen starts to decline? So things like poor memory and brain fog, very common. Irregular periods, that probably is going to be the first signs for you that something is happening. Headaches, vaginal dryness, fatigue, weak bones and fractures, joint pains, that's quite a common one for some people. Loss of libido, dried skin is another very common one. Hot flushes and night sweats. And sometimes people also, women will experience heart palpitation and anxiety that they've never had before. And they're just thinking, why am I getting anxious about something that, before wouldn't have bothered me at all? So once you know, you can then look for solutions. When you don't know, you may actually really stress about it, and stress exacerbates all your symptoms. And that's the next thing I want to share, is what actually affects our hormones. There are so many things that we have an influence on. Yes, there are things that we can't influence, unfortunately, but there are lots of things you can do. So stress is number one. So I know in this group there will be lots of therapists, lots of lovely practitioners who can help you reduce stress. Please do try and find the one thing that's going to help you, because your body will love you for it. Number two is managing your energy, your blood sugar levels. So if you tend to, reach for sugary food or caffeine to help you get through the day, that's when you want to really look at what you're eating throughout the day to manage your energy, so you don't have these up and down sort of, yo-yo energy effects, okay? Because your body doesn't like that, and your hormones don't like that either. Number three is sleep. I mentioned earlier, super important. Number four is gut health. So when your body is telling you that there's something a little bit wrong, if you feel bloated, if you have any kind of digestive issues. Hi Lindsay, lovely to see you, thanks for watching. So yeah, talking about digestion and how this is so important for hormone health. So when you get bloated, it's a sign that something is not in balance inside either your stomach, your small intestine, or your colon. So it's usually about balancing your bacteria. And if you've ever suffered, like me, of food poisoning, that can really wipe out your gut of all the bacteria, the good and the bad. And then you have to repopulate your gut. Otherwise, the bad bacteria take over and that can cause serious issues. And these issues don't usually go away. So if you have IBS, don't put up with it. Try and find the reason and try to find, a way to deal with it. And that's how nutritional therapy can help. It's super powerful. And that is the main reason why I studied nutrition and retrained as a nutritionist. So gut health, if something's not quite right, try and find some help. Emotional well-being has a big impact on our hormones as well. It kind of links back to stress. Our environment, let's think about what's around us. All the chemicals and the products that are, that are man-made, that our body actually really struggles to deal with. So think about maybe the skincare, the products you put on your skin. Think about, maybe where you live or where you spend time, basically reducing your toxic load will help you balance your hormones, because these chemicals can mimic estrogen and they sort of latch on to the estrogen receptors in our body and then create havoc. So you can, see how this can have an impact. And then the one thing that we can't really influence, but we have an impact, is genetics. We are born a certain way, but the environment that we're surrounded by will have an impact on our genetics. So once you know how your body works, or if there are areas that are not working as well as they should be, you can, compensate. And I do a lot of genetic testings with my clients now. So today I'm going to share, because I could have talked about this topic for a long time, but I want to give you some practical tips that you can start applying today to help you balance your hormones if you feel this is something you need. So 3 steps. Number 1 is look at hormone balancing diet. That includes foods that are really easy to digest, so gut-friendly foods. And in fact, I have a little guide which is called 5 Steps to Reduce Bloating After Eating. So if anyone is interested, very happy to share that with anyone watching. That's your first step, just to really help your digestion. Make sure you go to the bathroom every day, because if you don't, it means that the hormones that you don't need anymore will stay stored in your body and cause issues, all right? And then it's looking at specific nutrients to help the production of hormones. So things like vitamin C, things like your B vitamins. B vitamins is basically your stress vitamins. If you're highly stressed, go for a vitamin B complex. You're going to feel so much better. Essential fatty acid, that's your omega-3 that you find in oily fish and walnuts, and really helpful for dried skin, fatigue, achy joints, memory loss, inflammation, breast pain, heavy bleeds. Magnesium is wonderful. Again, if you feel highly stressed, and who hasn't felt stressed in the last 2 years, then I think the whole nation needs a nice dose of magnesium. So you can either take a supplement, or you can also go for Epsom salt baths. So you put that in your bath and have a nice soak for, it doesn't have to be very long, even if you don't have a lot of time, 15-20 minutes is amazing. You feel nice and relaxed, your whole body will have absorbed the magnesium, and you'll sleep really well, hopefully. And then there's more, Lindsay's saying, interesting, as I suffer from mood swings. Yeah, definitely looking at nutrient imbalance for mood swings could be really helpful. I do have also a guide with foods to help with anxiety and things like that. So I don't know how, it might be relevant actually for you. So I can share that too. And then there's more specific nutrients that will be, prescribed once, obviously, I understand your case. Okay, so it's not something that you want to take just off the shelf. We need to understand how your body metabolizes estrogen, how it uses estrogen, and we can help those different pathways. The tip number 2 is to support a specific organ that has, brilliant Lindsay, that has a specific organ that has a key role in detoxifying excess hormones. Can you guess what What that is, which organ detoxifies excess hormones in the body? It's actually the liver. So anything that burdens the liver will have an impact on your hormones. So 2 examples, painkillers. You know, if you take that on a regular basis for one reason or another, headaches or period pains, or that will have an impact on your liver. Another thing is alcohol. You know, obviously, you know, your liver has to deal with that. So when you do experience mood swings, brain fog, usually things to do with your brain, it's usually a sign that your body can't detoxify by itself and it needs a bit of support. So anything to help the liver is really, really helpful when it comes to hormone balancing. So what do we need to eat to support the liver? Lots of antioxidants, lots of colors, you know, think the rainbow, just think, you know, a few colors on your plate at each meal. That's a really easy guide to follow. Things like vitamin A, that's your orange food. So your butternut squash, your sweet potato, your carrots, these are wonderful. Also oily fish and egg yolk. And then vitamin E is also really helpful. Avocado, you'll find vitamin E in avocado, nuts and seeds. Cruciferous vegetables. So these are your cabbage family. So your broccoli, your cauliflower, your rocket, radishes, all these are part of the cruciferous vegetables and they help the liver do its job a lot better. And then things like garlic, onion, green vegetables like green leafy veg. They are so rich in nutrients. Your magnesium for kind of anti-stress, your calcium for your bones. We should really be eating some kind of green every day, if at all possible. And then, things like lemon, pomegranate, and green tea are also really rich in antioxidants, so really helpful too. And then step number 3 that you can do today is to remove these what we call endocrine disruptors. So they disrupt our network of hormones. So I mentioned, you know, chemicals, but things like BPA that you find in plastic. So one top tip for today, never, ever, ever heat up food in the microwave in a plastic container. If that is one thing that you do today, or stop doing today, I would recommend this. Because when you heat the plastic, some small particles end up in the food, and then when you eat the food, you're actually ingesting some small particles of plastic. So you could just imagine that's not great for the body. So if you're having a ready meal, just decant it into a plate and then put another one on top, put it in your microwave, and off you go. You can heat that up this way, but please, please, please do not heat food in plastic containers. Think about babies as well and young children, you know, same thing, just decant, you know, in a bowl, porcelain or glass, or and then you can put it back in plastic. Yes, it's a bit of a faff, but it's really important for their health, especially small children, because they're sponges, they absorb all these chemicals. So BPA in plastic, pesticides, you know, on fruit and veg, chemicals, heavy metals. You want to try and reduce that exposure as much as you can, because they mimic our hormones. So they can cause more stress on the body, they can have an impact on your metabolism, the way your body uses energy, and can lead on to all sorts of health conditions. So how do we reduce those endocrine disruptors? So number 1, washing our hands. I think we've mastered that one. Number 2, dusting and vacuuming often, so that, you know, you are picking up all these particles that we don't want, especially if you've got young children, you know, playing on carpets and things like that. Avoiding synthetic fragrances. So if you do have perfumes, you know, spray on your clothes as opposed to yourself, you know, if at all possible. Avoiding plastic, like I said. You know, filtering tap water is another good one. And then eating organic. So eating organic, you don't have to buy everything organic. Some people think it's more expensive. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. But there is a little tip for you here. There are 2 lists of veggies. It's an organization in the US that pull this together every year. And it's called the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15. So the dirty dozen are basically 12 either vegetables or fruit that tend to absorb a lot of the pesticides that is sprayed on this produce. So for example, strawberries from Spain, I was told that they are sprayed about 20 times before they come to our shops. So imagine, a strawberry is very fragile, has a skin but very thin that we eat. So the pesticide will actually go inside the fruit. I'm not saying it's easy to find organic strawberries, definitely not, but I eat a lot less strawberries since I've known this. So I tend to go for British strawberries because there's less travel, so it can be picked and sold in a shop quite quickly, so hopefully less pesticide on them. But so that's the dirty dozen. They are the vegetables that will absorb lots and lots of pesticide. So these ones I would advise you to find organic options if possible. And then the clean 15 are the vegetables that either have a skin that we remove, or they're just made a certain way, like cabbages. And they don't absorb those pesticides as much. So that's a top tip for you. Clean green. So that's basically thinking about the products that you use to clean yourself and clean your house. Just go for greener options with less chemicals. And the last tip really is to protect your children because they're really, really sensitive. So that's kind of whistle tour around our hormones. So I hope this kind of makes sense. It's a bit of an introduction really. And if you feel that you've recognized yourself in some of the symptoms and you want to chat further, I offer a free chat for everybody. And if I feel that I'm not the right person to help you because one reason or another, the dirty dozen and the clean 15, yeah, not 13, it's 15. If you Google it, you'll find it, Lindsay. So yes, I hope this was helpful. How else can I help? Well, I've got a free group called Your Hormone Harmony, natural therapies to help you manage your hormones naturally. So I'll share the link below if that's all right. And what else? So I'm launching a program. So I've got a hormone balancing program for anyone with PMS issues, and I also have a perimenopausal program, which is really helping women late 30s, early 40s, when those first symptoms are appearing, to really get on top of them and to really work out what your triggers are, because everyone is different and your triggers might be very different from someone else. You may need to focus on your liver, for example. Someone else may need to focus on their digestion. Someone else may need to reduce their stress massively, that kind of thing. So that's what I help you find out. And I also have a little handout called 10 Things All Women Over 40 Should Know About the Perimenopause. So lots and lots of information.